to wrap up the end of our color along series in Romantic Country, the first tale by Eriy. And I've got just the background and one cake left to do in this book. If I move it up, there you go. So that's what we've done. And as you can see, the pièce de résistance, the best of the best, is the opera cake, which I will talk a little bit about the history as I color it. But basically it is a layered cake. Typically it has a sponge, it has a filling, and then it's topped off with a chocolate ganache. So to tie in the colors, I'm going to go for the traditional chocolate on the top. We're going to make these probably pinks and white little decorations. Then we're going to come here to the sponge, and that's going to be a similar color to our Paris Brest and our roll cake. Then we're going to have here a pink layer, which will be a strawberry filling. Then here we're going to do another sponge layer, and then down here I'm going to actually try and do either a chocolate layer and a sponge or just a sponge. We'll see how it goes. The picture I have used as a reference I'm going to pull up for you, and as you can see, it actually has got quite a few more layers than what Eriy has drawn for us here, so we might not get to all of that. I'm going to also pull up for you a traditional opera cake, and as you can see on this picture, it has the chocolate ganache on the top, then it's done with a almost like a caramel, then you've got the cake, then a caramel, then the cake, which I think is probably a bit more suited to the way Eriy has drawn this picture. So we might follow more that sort of line where we'll have the dark chocolate, we'll have a caramel sauce over here, we'll do another layer of cake, and then maybe have this more like a flavoring. It's a bit tricky because technically you should have a sponge at the bottom and not like a filling, so it is missing a bit. I might actually draw in a couple of layers in there just to help us, because this is missing a layer. So we need, maybe I'll draw up here a thin layer, thin line to make the ganache a bit thinner. Then we'll have the caramel, the cake, the caramel, the cake, and then maybe do, see this part here at the bottom is throwing me off. It actually is wrong. Although the opera cake does have quite a lot of options, a lot of the ones that I'm seeing generally have a cake base. So basically what you want to create is a layered cake. What we could do is make this a dark chocolate, then a light sponge, a caramel layer, a light sponge, and then thin this out, do another bit of like a mousse, and then the chocolate cake on the chocolate ganache on the top. So if I come in and I'm just going to take a ruler, and we are just going to thin out that top layer there. I'm not going to use a graphite pencil, because if I do that, I'm going to leave a sharp line, and that's not going to work out for me. All right, so I'm going to pull up again another picture, and this picture has opera written on top of the cake, and I'm going to use that as my main reference picture. But I will have included in the beginning of the video pictures for you of the traditional cake and what I was looking at initially, and we can sort of use these various pictures to just help us along. All right, so because I'm using a dark chocolate, I'm going to use a dark brown, and I'm going to zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to actually come in here and just thin this out a bit. Okay. Now on this photo, I've decided to use now as a reference. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. But I am going to bring in a bit of the pinks just to try and bring the red coming up here. So it will not look pinky pink, but it will also not look too red because we don't want it to be too dark. So I'm just going to grab I've pulled out all my pinks because I'm busy with a 2-color challenge one of my kids gave me. So in the process, I've pulled out everything. Okay, so I've got my pink PC929, and we're going to have it up here. Now I'm doing a very light layer because I need to map my colors for this cake so I don't get too lost. And we'll have a pink filling here. And then we'll make this a chocolate base. And then this is a typical sponge. So I'm going to gently bring in my dark brown PC946. Now I'm going to deepen up these colors, but for now what I want to do is really just put in where my colors are going to be. Then I'm going to use a beige PC997 for the sponge. So if you go into Pinterest and you type in opera cake, you will find quite a lot of them. Traditionally, they are made from, I will tell you in a minute, I'm just pulling up the article. 3 layers of Joconde almond flavored sponge cake, soaked in coffee syrup and topped with coffee, buttercream and chocolate ganache. The top is covered with a deep, dark chocolate icing. So that explains the different layers you have. So you'd have the deep chocolate icing on the top, mixed with a bit of a ganache. Then you have the flavored icing, the flavored buttercream. Then you've got the infused sponge, and then it just layers on. So very, very nice. Okay, so we're going to bring in some chocolate, which is PC1082. And I like this color because it's dark and yet it's still bright. Now at the bottom here, we will need it sort of in the middle, but we're going to make this quite dark because we're pretending it's kind of like sitting on a plate. Then we're going to take our dark umber PC947. And we're just going to blend it out, but also make quite a defined line here. So you want to create the line at the bottom, but at the top. But then what we want to do is make sure that it blends into the rest of the cake. Now along here, you're not going to get much light, so that's going to be a lot darker. So start dark and go light. Dark here, light to the towards where we put the chocolate. If you know how to color muffins or cake slices, I would just go with the technique that you're familiar with. I'm not as familiar with all these different nuances, so we're just gonna improvise. So if I zoom it up a bit more on my laptop, I can see it a little bit better and just get an idea of sort of what we're going for. Okay, so let's bring in a little bit of PC997 Beige, just to bring a bit of lightness into here. Then we're going to come back in with our chocolate PC1082. And I'm trying to go in circular motions. Alright, we're going to bring in some sepia, which is even darker than our umber. And then we're going to come back to our dark brown, which is PC946. Right, dark umber. Which is PC947. All right, so now we're going to bring in some magenta. And then we're going to get some Crimson Lake, PC925. So for the sake of the other red bits on the page, I don't want this to be too red and I don't want it to be too pink. So we do need to try and balance this a little bit more so that it connects with the rest of the page. I like the idea of bringing in the reds just to stick to the color theme that we've got going here. I just felt if we were to keep everything browns and beiges, it would look a little bit, it would look lovely, but it might just look a bit too monotonous. So I've tried to keep it fresh and appetizing. Okay. So this is some Sepia PC948 along here, just to help with the shadow of the sponge. And then we're going to bring in some Deco Pink, PC1014. And what this Deco Pink is doing, it's creating our highlight and it's blending for us at the same time. Then we can bring in Crimson Lake PC925 again. Okay, so now we're going to our sponge. Okay, so now we're going to use our beige. I'm not going to worry about being precise. I'm going in a round, small circle motion because I'm trying to leave some natural gaps. Now, this sponge is not very filled with sienna browns or anything like that. It's maybe got a bit more rosy beige and beige siennas in it for shadows and some dark umbers. So we're going to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to make marks in a sporadic kind of way, a random way, to create the texture of the sponge. So I think first let's use some chocolate. So we come like that. And then we want some beige sienna, PC1080. And then we want some beige. Okay, so now we're going to take our dark brown This is Beige Sienna PC1080. And then PC914 Cream. Right, that is the opera cake. So if I zoom you out, that's what it looks like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the background, and then I'm going to come back and finish off any of the embellishing with the white Sakura jelly roll. So I will see you in the next part for the final touches and the background. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye for now.